Hi, today I would like to talk to you about the impact of the fundamentalist modernist movements in history whose repercussions can still be seen and felt today. The fundamentalist and modernist movements had a great impact on modern day America. One of the most important elements of the fundamentalist modernist controversy was the state of Tennessee v. Scopes, also known as the Scopes or Monkey Trial. It all began in March of 1925 when the Tennessee State Legislature passed the Butler Act, which banned the teaching of evolution throughout the state. This act appeased the fundamentalists, but the modernists of the nation were outraged. The American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, immediately offered to defend any teacher prosecuted under the Butler Act by the state of Tennessee. George Rapalea, a modernist who disagreed with the new law and a coal company manager who wished to put Dayton, Tennessee on the map, arrived at Fred Robinson's drug store in Dayton, Tennessee with a copy of the paper containing the ACLU's offer. Now, while at the drugstore, Rapalea began espousing the virtues of someone taking the ACLU up on its offer in Dayton in order to further the town's publicity. Now, listening to Rapalea that night was Walter White, a Dayton school's superintendent. Rapalea and White soon called in 24-year-old John Scopes to the drugstore. Scopes was a general science teacher and a part-time football coach. Scopes had been filling in for a biology teacher who was out sick and told Rapalea that during that time he had assigned readings about evolution for the purposes of review to the students and agreed to be the subject of the ACLU's test case. Two local attorneys and friends of Scopes, Herbert and Sue Hicks, agreed to prosecute the test case. Three-time unsuccessful presidential candidate, attorney, and well-known fundamentalist, William Jennings Bryan, offered his services to the prosecution despite the fact that he hadn't practiced law in over 30 years. And rounding out the rest of the prosecution was former Attorney Generals for Eastern Tennessee, A.T. Stewart and Ben B. McKenzie, and Bryan's son, federal prosecutor William Jennings Bryan Jr. Now, Clarence Darrow, a successful criminal attorney, offered to act as the defense attorney once he had heard that Bryan had signed on for the prosecution. The ACLU preferred to have former presidential candidates John W. Davies and Charles Evan Hughes, but because of fear that Darrow would turn it into a blatant attack on religion itself. But neither Davies nor Hughes was willing to serve alongside Darrow. So instead, speechwriter Arthur Garfield Hayes and international divorce attorney Dudley Field Malone joined Darrow on the defense team. On July 10, 1925, the trial began. It was presided over by Judge John T. Ralston, and the trial itself took on a carnival-like atmosphere with over 1,000 people and 100 newspapers per day packing into the Rhea County Courthouse. The trial only lasted 8 days, and ultimately the jury returned with a guilty verdict in just 9 minutes. John Scopes was fined $100. The ACLU intended on bringing the case all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, but before that could happen, the Tennessee Supreme Court overturned the guilty verdict on a technicality. The Butler Act ultimately was never enforced again, and by 1927, laws prohibiting the teaching of evolution were overturned in 22 states. So that's just a little bit about the impact of the modernist fundamentalist controversy in light of the Scopes monkey trial and how that affects America today. Thank you for your time.